Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? Why have you done this to us?
The Lord himself will fight for you.
The ground holds us fast! We are doomed! The sea is closing! Faster! Move the chariot! We are sinking! Return, O waters, and cover the host of Pharaoh! The waters are upon us! Turn back! Turn back!
In the land of Egypt, under a sky that had watched centuries of kings rise and fall, a journey began that would divide bondage from freedom. The people of Israel had just walked out of Egypt, not as scattered fugitives, but as a nation led by the unseen hand of God. The memory of the plague still lingered, whispers of the Nile turning to blood, of darkness smothering the land, of Pharaoh finally bowing under the weight of loss. But as the Israelites moved away from the cities of their slavery, they did not yet feel secure. Every step into the wilderness raised questions. Where were they going? How would they survive? And would Egypt really let them go? At their head walked Moses, once a prince of Egypt, now a shepherd, turned prophet carrying a staff that had become a symbol of divine authority. He did not lead by his own wisdom. A pillar of cloud moved ahead of the people by day, and a pillar of fire burned above them by night. It was more than a sign. It was a living assurance that the God who had judged Egypt was now guiding his people. The Israelites followed, men, women, and children, with flocks and herds and hurriedly gathered belongings. For the first time in generations, they were not walking toward labor. They were walking away from it. Yet freedom, they soon discovered, does not come without fear. Back in Egypt, Pharaoh's grief hardened into rage. How could he have allowed his slave force to walk away? Pride, wounded and burning, overruled any moment of humility.
The slaves! They have escaped into the desert!
Escaped! My chariots shall bring them back in chains!
He summoned his officials, and together they resolved to reclaim what they believed still belonged to them. Chariots were prepared, horses harnessed, soldiers armed. The might of Egypt thundered to life again.
Secure the yokes! To your chariots, soldiers! Move out!
Pharaoh's best chariots, along with many others, rolled out of the city in pursuit of Israel. Dust rose behind them like a storm, while Israel camped by the Red Sea, unaware of the danger approaching. The mood within the camp remained uneasy. Before them stretched a vast body of water, deep, wide, and impossible to cross. Behind them lay the route back to Egypt. The wilderness around them offered no escape. When scouts looked back toward the horizon and saw the rising dust of the Egyptian army, terror ripped through the people. The sound of chariot wheels grew louder. The glint of armor and spearheads began to shimmer in the distance. Panic took hold. Fear exploded into anger. The Israelites turned on Moses with accusations born from desperation. They shouted that it would have been better to die in Egypt than to perish in the wilderness. Their words were raw and bitter.
Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? Why have you done this to us?
In their eyes they were trapped, hemmed in by sea, desert, and an advancing army. Moses heard their cries, but he did not answer with panic. He stood firm, looking out over the waters and then back at the people who had been entrusted to his care. He lifted his voice and spoke words that defied everything their eyes could see. "Do not be afraid," he said. "Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." He declared that the Egyptians they saw would never be seen again.
The Lord himself will fight for you.
He promised that the Lord himself would fight for them, and they needed only to be still. Those words hung in the air as the sun sank toward the horizon. Then God acted. The pillar of cloud that had led them moved from in front of the camp to behind it. It settled between the Israelites and the Egyptian army. On one side, it cast darkness, slowing and confusing the Egyptians. On the other, it shone with light, illuminating the camp of Israel through the night. The people were no longer exposed. A divine barrier stood between them and the chariots. Then God spoke to Moses and told him to raise his staff and stretch out his hand over the sea. Moses obeyed. He walked to the edge of the waters, lifted his staff high, and stretched his hand over the vast expanse. A mighty wind began to blow, a strong east wind that roared through the night. The sea, once a single unbroken body, began to tremble and shift. Under the force of the wind, the waters split apart. Like curtains drawn back, they rose into towering walls on either side, leaving a path of dry ground between them. The seabed, which moments before had been hidden beneath waves, now stretched out like a road carved by the hand of God. Lanterns and torches flickered across the camp as people saw the miracle unfolding. Awe battled with fear in their hearts. Yet there was no time to hesitate. Moses led the way into the path through the sea, and the Israelites followed. Step by step, they walked between walls of water that stood higher than any structure they had ever seen. The sound of rushing wind filled their ears. Water churned, held back not by natural force but by divine command. Parents held their children tightly. Elders leaned on their staffs. Young men helped the weak. Every footfall on the dry, solid ground was an act of faith. Behind them, the barrier of cloud still separated Egypt from Israel. But as the night wore on, God allowed the Egyptians to move forward. Pharaoh's army, determined and furious, charged into the sea on the same path. Chariots rolled over the exposed seabed, wheels rattling, horses snorting as they pursued the people. They refused to let go. Yet once they were deep within the path, the Lord looked down from within the pillar of fire and cloud and threw the army of Egypt into confusion. The wheels of their chariots began to jam. Horses stumbled. Progress slowed to chaos. Soldiers shouted in fear. Realization struck them. They were not just chasing fugitives. They were fighting against the God of Israel. The cry rose among them, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fights for them against Egypt." On the far side of the sea, the last of the Israelites stepped onto solid shore. Moses stood there, watching his people gather, the path still open behind them. Then came the final command. God told Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea again, that the waters might return to their place. Moses lifted his staff once more. At the break of dawn, as the first light of morning touched the horizon, the walls of water collapsed. The sea rushed back with irresistible force, covering the chariots and horsemen that had followed Israel into the path. The army that had once been feared throughout Egypt was silenced beneath the waves. When the waters settled and the surface grew calm, it was as if the sea had always been whole. But the shoreline told another story. Broken pieces of chariots washed onto the sand. The Israelites looked out over the water and understood what had happened. God had not merely delayed their enemies, He had removed them. The people who had once lived under the lash of Egyptian taskmasters now stood free, watching the defeat of those who had oppressed them. Fear of the Lord filled them, not terror, but awed reverence. They saw in Moses not just a man, but a leader chosen and empowered by God. On that shore, faith took root in a new way. Miriam, the sister of Moses, took a tambourine in her hand, and other women joined her with instruments. Together they began to sing and dance. A song rose from the hearts of the people, a song of triumph, of rescue, of a God who is not distant, but acts powerfully on behalf of His own. The crossing of the Red Sea was more than an escape from danger. It was a turning point in identity. Israel ceased to be a collection of scattered slaves and became a people defined by deliverance. The line between past and future had been drawn by a path through the deep. Behind them lay bondage and fear. Before them lay wilderness, yes, but also promise. The God who had opened the sea would guide them still. As the people moved away from the shoreline, the sound of the waves remained a steady reminder of what had taken place. Generations yet unborn would hear of that night and remember that the Lord made a way where there was none, turning the sea into a road and defeating the mightiest empire, not with armies of men, but with wind and water. Whenever they faced new fears, they would look back to that moment and know that the God who delivered them at the Red Sea was able to deliver them again. It is about a God who sees His people trapped and intervenes in ways beyond imagination. It is about the triumph of trust over terror, of faith over sight. It is the declaration that when God says, "Go forward," no sea, no army, no barrier can ultimately stand in the way. On that day, standing between parted waters, Israel learned that deliverance is not always a gentle path. Sometimes it is a road cut through the impossible, lit by the presence of God, and walked in trembling but determined faith. And on the other side of that road, everything changes.
The slaves, they have escaped into the desert.
Escaped! My chariots shall bring them back in chains!
Secure the yokes! To your chariots, soldiers! Move out! Look, the Egyptians are upon us! We are doomed!
Why have you...
Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?
The Lord Himself will fight for you!
Do not be afraid.
The Lord will fight for you.
Look, the waters are standing still.
Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. He will fight for you.
The sea is parted.
Hurry, quickly now. Do not look back. We are almost there.
Charge! Kill them all! The ground holds us fast! We are doomed! The sea is closing!
Faster! Move the chariot!
We are sinking! Look out! The water is coming down!
We are free. The waters are held back by the hand of the Almighty. Keep moving forward, quickly now. Faster now! The Egyptians are behind us. Keep moving! Look to the light! We are nearly there.
We are finally free. The Lord has delivered us from the hand of Egypt.
Return, O waters, and cover the host of Pharaoh.
The waters are upon us.
Turn back! Turn back!
The Lord fights against us.